following is a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Union workers that work on the railroad scored a major victory yesterday by striking a deal to avert a railway strike that could have hurt the U.S. economy. What was it? Why is this important? What does this mean for the future of logistics? Migrants were flown to Martha's Vineyard to test liberal consistency of open borders. What is the result so far? And what will Democrats do next? Mike Lindell was confronted by the FBI at Hardee's in Minnesota, and they took his cell phone. MAGA once again in full meltdown mode. Disney has redone another classic, The Little Mermaid, only this time, Ariel is black. Why is there so much fallout from this trailer for this kid's movie? Let's talk about this and settle this once and for all. All of this on this week's episode of Current Events on Tap. And good evening, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Current Events on Tap with your host, Alex Kirsch, a podcast from the Alex Kirsch Project. Hey, that's me, Army retiree, truck driver, pragmatic progressive, political commentator, and guess what? Sometimes I'm a cloud chaser. If this is your first time listening, please do me a solid and hit like and share and subscribe to my Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. This podcast gives you this week's current events, and I also like to do what I call the beer of the week. I pick one beer, I review it based on price, pour, aroma, taste, and then I give an overall rating, 1 out of 5 mugs, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. Be sure to catch me every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker, or just catch me at your early inconvenience on the other platforms, like I said before, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Just type in the Alex Kirsch Project or type in Current Events on Tap, and you will find this podcast. All right, and without further ado, it is time for the Beer of the Week. The Beer of the Week this week is once again another Michigan beer. Big surprise. Hell, what can I say? There's a lot of beers here in Michigan, so I gotta try them all. I don't know if I ever will, though. But, however, the beer that I've chosen is from a brewery that I have already reviewed before. However, the beer today is POG-O-Licious, brought to you by the Atwater Brewery based out of Detroit, Michigan. POG stands for passion fruit, orange, and guava. A beautiful trio of fruit into one IPA. Now, I know I've already done a history on this brewery, but guess what? I'm going to do it again. It's my show. I do what the hell I want to. The history of the brewery is basically, it was founded by Atwater Products. It was founded in 1997 in the historic Rivertown district. They kind of wanted to bring back, the bohemian style of beer that was ever so popular in the 1800s by the Stroh's Brewing Company. It is now under the ownership of Mark Reith, alumni of Michigan State University. He bought the brewery in 2005, and the last beer that I reviewed was on the Dirty Blonde, but today I am trying their POG-O-Licious IPA. It has an alcohol percentage of 6.5%, and it was introduced in December of 2020. So now, it is time to rate this on a scale of 1 to 5 mugs, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So let's go ahead and go to price. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. This can be bought in a 6-pack of like $10 or $18 for a 12-pack, depending on which liquor store or grocery store you might buy this in. Now, I did once again buy this at another liquor store that was just inside of Carroll. However, you can also order this online. However, if you live in Michigan, more than likely you can buy this in a grocery store or any standardized liquor store. However, if you live across the country and you're interested in buying this beer, just look it up online. You might be able to order it and they might be able to deliver it to you. This is a great price for an IPA, though. $10 or $18, like I said, this is not your typical IPA. The pour. I'm going to give this also a 4 out of 5. It's a very simple pour. Very low risk of an excessive foamy head. It is very balanced, but has a very nice golden color to it. It's a really pretty color to it, honestly. The aroma. This is an easy 5 out of 5 mugs. The first smell of this, you pick up that fruity smell right away. And the first time I ever had a POG beer, a POG IPA, when I was visiting my friend Big Sarge in Harrisburg, PA. We went to a winery and they had a POG IPA that was absolutely sensational. This POG, however, has a very exceptional smell to it. Really, you can just really pick up that nice fruity smell. It's like smelling like that fruit juice kind of deal. The taste now, I'm going to give this also a 5 out of 5 because let me put it like this. I am not a big fan of IPAs. Most IPAs have that really hard, bitter aftertaste, but this one definitely makes me a believer. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and take a drink. I really don't get that pucker factor from this IPA. It's got that nice, accented, well-balanced flavor. Yes, you can taste the hops, and usually most IPAs have that real hoppy taste to it that gives that extra bitterness, but you don't really get that with this one. Now, I had my wife try this earlier, and she didn't really care for it too much. I'm sorry. But this one, it tastes really good. Now, I would not recommend drinking this one at room temperature. This is one that you have to drink when it is nice and cold. So I'm just giving you my personal opinion on that. Next, the overall rating, I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 mugs. It's still a great IPA, truly remarkable, but I'm not usually much of an IPA drinker. I kind of leave that to those that actually love the IPAs. But this is one that I can drink with having a pucker factor. It tastes great, and once again, it is a definitely refreshing beverage. So thank you once again, Atwater Brewery. This is a very nice, delicious IPA. You've made me a believer. Now, on to current events. So union workers, especially those within the rail industry, and the Secretary of Labor within the Biden administration, they scored a major victory for those that work on the railroads. The talks included all major U.S. railroad companies to include BNSF, which is Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, CSX, Kansas City Southern, and the U.S. operations of Canadian National. Now, there have been 3 years of consistent negotiations where these were essentially going nowhere. The workers were demanding better wages, better working conditions, and healthcare options. And had there not been a negotiation by today, the strike could have started today. Now, I just want everybody to have a good understanding of what this is. This would have had an absolutely devastating effect on our supply chain economy and our economy as a whole. Now, as a truck driver who works in the intermodal industry on going in and out of these rail yards, I can tell you the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of containers you see in the yard, on the tracks, being brought in, taken out on the rail yards. It's absurd how much freight there is being moved. And this is just in Chicago alone. Now, you have freight being taken to a BNSF Burlington Northern Santa Fe yard in Chicago. It's being sent to Texas or California, New Jersey. Hell, I've even had freight go to Mexico. You have car parts, you got medical supplies, even cheeses that are being sent over all across the country via freight. If a rail yard worker or the entire workers as a whole started a strike and refused to work, that's freight that does not get delivered across the country. You may have OTR drivers that drive from one side of the country to the next, but freight via rail is absolutely critical to the country. Now, I'm going to give y'all some statistics. I'm going to give y'all some numbers. So let's go ahead and get these thinking caps going, okay? I'm going to give y'all a chance to kind of think through this. The U.S. freight rail network has nearly 140,000 route miles. That's rail all across the country. Again, this is according to the Department of Transportation. There's 7 Class 1 railroads, 22 regional railroads, and 5,884 local short-line railroads. It is an $80 billion a year industry. It employs 150,000 plus jobs. But this is a net loss of jobs between 2018 and 2020 of 40,000 jobs. Let me tell you that again. 40,000 jobs. This is due to technological advances. This is due to cutbacks. This is due to pay cuts, what have you. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about how freight is moved. Freight that is moved alone by trucks makes up 39.6% of the industry. Freight moved by rail is 27.9%. By pipeline, which is predominantly all of your fossil fuels and your oils and whatnot, is 17.5%. Alternate modes, basically meaning by mail, whatnot, like FedEx, UPS, is 7.8%. By water, basically meaning by port, is 6.9%. By air is only 0.1%. Rail is very cost effective because a rail freight makes up 52% of bulk commodities such as agricultural and energy products, and 48% consists of consumer goods and other products. Now, like I said, rail yards are not just limited to the United States. They're also sending freight to Canada and Mexico as well. Now, can you imagine what might happen if all these workers went on strike for 3 days? Just take a guess. What do you think might happen? If they stopped working for 3 days, truck drivers, like myself, are out of a job. If truck drivers are out of a job for 3 days, grocery stores run out of food, medical supplies don't get delivered, and fuel does not get pumped at your local gas stations. That's how essential these rail yard workers are. And like I said before, this would be absolutely devastating to this country. Now, I know critics are going to continue to blame the Biden administration for the supply chain issues. Yes, he is the president, and yes, he's still consistently working, as is the Secretary of Transportation and the Secretary of Labor. But I want everybody to remember something, okay? The critics were very critical of Biden when he first took office in regards to the ports. Now, this is an issue that is due to the global pandemic that is still not completely solved. It is still going to this day because there's still people out there that will not get vaccinated because they still believe that it's a hoax. They still believe that the vaccine is going to cause them to have autism or it's going to shorten their life expectancy. You got people out there that are continuing to be hard-headed about this. So the global pandemic, even though it's not nearly as significant as it was in 2020, it's still a bit of a mess right now. Now, it's still not completely solved, and yet we are still dealing with the logistics issue. Let alone the fact that you also had some truck drivers that were trying to drive to D.C. to protest these mask mandates, which, even though you also had a lot of the truck drivers that are still getting that job done, even just the slightest bit of some truck drivers not taking freight, that still kind of slows down the supply chain essentially across this country. Now, again, for 3 years, these rail workers have tried to fight for their rights for better care, for better pay, and time off. Because let me tell you, this is demanding work. Really tough and demanding work. I've spoken to somebody that actually worked on rail runs, like not necessarily working on the rail lines, but they worked as part of the first response anytime there was a situation like a crash or a disaster. And he told me it's a tough job. Really, really difficult. We're talking about these are guys that basically are put on call within 24 hours notice, and they could be gone for days at a time with little to no notice whatsoever. Expected to work out in the most harrowing conditions, whether it's hot, it's cold, there's snow, there's rain, what have you. There's a disaster that just took place. These rail workers are basically the ones that are just keeping the trains going. Now, I always say this. The truck driver is the heartbeat of America, but the rail worker, in my opinion, is the blood vessel of America. And I'm a firm believer in taking care of the worker in general, especially the rail worker. And they're the ones that are making sure that freight stays moving across North America. So what is it exactly that they've been concerned about? Well, according to Reuters, the workforce has been cut down due to improvements with technology and cutting costs. Some workers, like I said before, are on call 24/7 and are sometimes forced to work days at a time with little to no notice at all. Now, ongoing problems are like working conditions that make it difficult for a life off the job, essentially. So basically what I mean is, like, when you're working on the job, it's so catastrophic and it's so dangerous that, maybe life after when you're done, you don't get exactly the same kind of care that you are entitled to in regards to this. There's a lack of sick leave where they couldn't routinely see their doctor or to take care of their families during emergencies. Now, I want everybody to understand something. If something's not right at home, you're not going to be 100% in the right frame of mind when you're actually at work. And this doesn't matter what job you're in. It could be the hardest, biggest job, like working on an oil pipeline, working on a railroad. You could have a bad day at home and then you're going to work and that's all that's going to be on your mind. Why? Because we are human beings. We all have feelings. We know that we are just... Some people just have a hard time of dealing with what's going on back at home. Especially if, like, let's say you and your significant other, you have a fight because you can't pay the bills on time. You're not making enough to make ends meet. Your family is stressed out. You got to make sure that your baby gets, like, their immunizations and whatnot. You're stressed out and you're thinking about this back home, but you're not getting paid enough. You're going to be thinking about this while at there, and you're not always going to be in the right frame of mind, especially when you're working hours upon hours in the most treacherous conditions across the country. And I'm not being hyperbolic, and I'm not just making this stuff up. That's the reality of the situation that these railroad workers are working. Yes, they opted to work for this, but you know what? I always say this, if you don't take care of your workers, why should they work for you? But I'm going to keep saying that because I really need to kind of hit it home for y'all, okay? But the fact that there's a lack of sick leave and they could not go to the doctor to get taken care of is so essential to the common worker, to the common employee. Now, the deal struck yesterday was broken between the Department of Labor and the unions and the U.S. railroads after the talks had lasted 20 hours. So what did the workers get? Now, good stuff, and it's a good start. The workers got a 24% wage increase over a 5-year period and lump sum payments of $1,000 each over the next 5 years. And railroad workers are expected to get some back pay of $11,000 once this deal is sealed completely. Workers are also going to get one additional paid leave day a year, but workers can now also take unpaid time off for doctor's appointments. Or they can get medical procedures taken care of without being penalized for a lack of attendance, because the system that they had in place before basically made it to where if you were gone for a certain amount of time, you were going to get penalized by points. And once you reach a certain amount of points, you were then let go, which is crap. It's terrible. Because you know what? Like I said, people need to be taken care of. People need to go to the doctor. People should have the ability and the entitlement and the right to go to a doctor. Because if they can't go to the doctor and they're suffering from some sort of a medical condition they can't explain, and they just drop dead and nobody knows why because they were never allowed to go to the doctor, what does that say about your company, essentially? This is why workers' rights are so important. What else were they given? Workers will have to pay more for their health insurance, but it will be capped at 15% of the total cost for their insurance plan. Now, a lot of workers aren't really happy about this. Some of them are actually not pleased with this. Some of the unions are not pleased about this, and I get that because to them it seems like it's not that great of a deal right now. Some of them feel like they're still getting somewhat shafted, and I understand that. I mean, I'm not in their shoes, so I can't tell them what they're feeling is justified. I have no right to tell them they just need to suck it up and just be grown-ups about this, because for some people, they could be one paycheck away from, not being able to pay their mortgage. Or let's say, for example, their car breaks down and then their wife has no way of getting to the hospital. These are real situations. These are real issues that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. These are issues that we face as a country across the board. And it doesn't matter what kind of a job you have. It could be anything. You could literally work in the rail yard. You could be a truck driver. You could be as a doctor. You could be a nurse. You could be working at McDonald's flipping burgers. If you're struggling to make ends meet, and if you are still unable to pay all of your bills, and there's no other job opportunities, it's difficult. It's hard. It sucks. And the worst part about this is that there are still people out there that will tell you, oh, you just need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. It's not as easy as that. Some people will only take a job because it's the only job available. Yeah, sure, they could probably go to college, but then you've got people on the right saying, oh, well, college is just nothing but a woke system now. Nobody wants to go to college. Okay, fine. They could go to trade school, but what if there is no trade that they really want to get into? I mean, yeah, maybe some people might have to suck it up, but it's easier said than done. There's a reason as to why it's so important that the workers and the employees, or however you want to put it, get taken care of. Because I'm a firm believer, if you are an employer, you are responsible for the welfare of your employees. Now, there are people out there that say, oh, no, that's not true. Okay, so if you're just going to have this screwed up attitude where you're not going to take care of the people, you're not going to pay them a good wage, why the hell should they work for you? Seriously. I mean, it's a very basic concept. If you take care of the employee, if you take care of the worker, they will take good care of you. It doesn't matter what kind of a job it is. Even if this is a starter job, if you want people to have a good taste in their mouth when they leave your job and say, you know what, I worked over there at that Burger King, and I tell you what, they had a good manager over there. He or she took good care of me. They taught me what it means to be responsible, to multitask. They were good at communicating. These are effective skill traits that people can learn at any job. But if you don't take good care of them, and if you just treat it like an assembly line, and you don't offer any real growth to some of your employees, then why the hell should people come and work for you in the first place? Now, I will not lie. I worked some really crappy jobs growing up. I worked in a green bean cannery growing up for 3 summers. I didn't like it, but guess what? I still did it. And you know what? There were some people there. Yeah, I probably saw 4 or 5 different managers in the time I was there, and I didn't have a good relationship with them always. It's not they were bad people, but it's just it was a massive green bean cannery. And I didn't really expect much growth, but there are people there that can offer you that kind of growth. They teach you a lot about resilience. They teach you a lot about how to, be able to react to situations that are out of your control. But the thing is, these rules also apply when you join the military. If you're a platoon sergeant, if you're a section chief, a squad leader, a commander, whatnot, if you don't have the respect of your people, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that for the rest of your life. I know, because you know what? I've had people say the same thing about me. I've had people say that they respected working for me, and there are some people that hated working for me. That's just the nature of the beast. You're not going to be able to please everybody. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that you can do as an employer is take care of your employees, which that's what I get with my company, okay? I feel like I am a valued employee where I work at, and I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of where I work at. Everybody should have that same feeling of any job they go to. And if they go to a job every day and it's the worst day of their entire life, you're probably in the wrong line of work. But you know what? Sometimes, you might have to work these crappy jobs in order to make ends meet. But the opportunity for people to find a good, decent job should always be available to them. You should always be able to broaden your horizons. It's not always that easy, though. Sometimes the opportunity just has not shown itself yet. And that's the unfortunate truth of the matter. But the fact that so many people are going to say, oh, these people just need to suck it up and drive on. Oh, my God, this is just, the unions it's socialism. It's not socialism, okay? The unions are the reason as to why we have the 8-hour workday. It's the unions that we're making sure that people have a weekend. It's the unions that make sure that the workers have equal rights and equal protections in the companies. It's the unions that make sure that people get health care in businesses. It's the unions that make sure that people are paid good wages. They are so essential to the workforce to ensure that people have rights, essentially. Now, here's the amazing thing, though. Anytime you bring up the concept of a worker having rights, okay, I'm not simply saying that the worker should have a say in the means of production, because that's what socialism is. And communism is the concept of where, where everybody's only paid in accordance to their needs. No, what I'm simply talking about is that they should be treated as people. They should not be going to a plant and being forced to pee in a bottle just to save up on time. They should not be penalized if they don't meet a certain deadline. If they fail to meet a certain deadline, it's up to the manager to find out, okay, so what happened and what can we do to help you improve? Not berate them or treat them poorly. This could happen in any facility. It can happen this in any job that you might take. But the thing is, though, managers have got to learn to be human. They've got to learn to remember that these people are so essential, and it's the workers that truly do have the most power. Because if every worker stopped working at one Amazon plant, what would that Amazon plant do then? They got to go out and find more workers. But the workers are like, hey, don't work for this company. Don't work for this plant. The guy over here is a complete asshole. Why should anybody work at this place? Now, I'm not trying to bash Amazon. I'm just using that as an example. But the fact of the matter is, if we are not going to focus on the people, if we are not going to focus on the workers and how we can take care of them, why the hell should you remain in business? It is that simple. Now, I'm pretty sure there's some people out there like, oh, well, listen to this guy. This guy's talking about some really crazy socialism. No, listen, you have to understand something. This is a concept that has been around for decades. This is something that we could all believe in. And this isn't Bernie Sanders talking. Do you know who one of the first people to talk about the rights of the worker was? Theodore Roosevelt. That's right. A Republican spoke about the rights of the worker. This is what he had said. These are two quotes that Theodore Roosevelt said, the rights of the worker. No man, or in this case, any woman as well, can be a good citizen unless he has a wage more than sufficient to cover the bare cost of living and hours of labor short enough so after his day's work is done, he will have time and energy to bear his share in the management of the community to help in carrying the general load. I couldn't agree more with that. How true is that statement, honestly? Because if a man is unable to meet his financial obligations, if he is unable to make sure he makes ends meet, why should he continue to work at that company? If he works those extra long hours and he can't even spend time to help raise his kids, why should he continue working there? It is so essential to ensure that the workers, yes, you have to be able to put in a full day's work, but you should also have the opportunity to spend some time at home and to help contribute to make your community better and to make your household better. These are all essential rights of the worker. But this is another thing that he had stated. We stand for a living wage. Wages are subnormal if they fail to provide a living for those who devote their time and energy to industrial occupations. The monetary equivalent of a living wage varies according to the local conditions, but must include enough to secure the elements of normal standard of living, a standard high enough to make morality possible, to provide for education and recreation, to care for immature members of the family, to maintain the family during periods of sickness, and to permit a reasonable saving for old age. I couldn't agree more. This is why Theodore Roosevelt is considered one of the most progressive Republicans in the history of the Republican Party. These are the rights of the worker. Now, again, this is just a stepping stone in the right direction for the union workers, but this is a victory for them, and this is a victory for the country. Because just remember, you might consider this, oh, these workers are just being petty. No, they are entitled to have rights. These aren't entitlements. These are rights. This is something that they deserve. This is something that they are willing to bust their asses to make sure that the rail systems are fully operational, so the freight that we pick up and move and deliver to these yards gets to their destination to keep the supply chain going. Again, these people are the blood vessel of this country, and we'd be a fool to not honor their commitments to us. And we have got to ensure that they stay committed, and we have got to give them the incentive, because we are, in fact, creatures of incentive. I want everybody to remember that. So recently, migrants were flown to Martha's Vineyard. Governor Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott thought it would be a great idea to own the libs, to send migrants to Martha's Vineyard as a means of testing the conviction of those who believe in an open border society. Well, first things first, I have yet to meet anybody or any politician that says, oh, open borders, open borders, open borders. Not one person has said that. They insist that Nancy Pelosi has said that. Now, let's just remember, I'm not a fan of Nancy Pelosi, but I have never heard her say, oh, I want open borders. Nobody has talked about open borders. They've just talked about they want to make sure that the border works. The migrants that were sent to Martha's Vineyard were sent from San Antonio, Texas, which was stopped in Florida en route to Martha's Vineyard. Now, there was 50 migrants from Venezuela. Now, Texas and Arizona have continued to send migrants to Democratic-run cities like New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. for months, in the hopes that this will somehow motivate the current administration to secure the border. Now, this is what's most interesting about this. The Republicans have tried to sell you the idea that this is the most important issue facing the country. They will tell you these migrants are evil people. Why? Because Donald Trump has told him so. I have heard these words, stop the invasion, for over 20 years. And in those 20 years, I believed that the people crossing the border were actually, in fact, bad people, or people that just didn't deserve to come here. They didn't earn their keep. I listened to the same talking points heard on conservative media about how these people came here to feast on the spoils of the U.S. and take advantage of our system. However, in the last couple of years, my position has changed. Now, I'm not going to lie. I still believe that there should be a process in order to become a citizen in this country. However, the alienation and the indifference that we have shown migrants to me is completely unacceptable. Labeling them all as drug dealers, rapists, and traffickers is disingenuous and is it's derogatory, and it's actually racist. You're looping an entire group of people into one category. But I remember hearing stories about this caravan of migrants coming to take over our country. And people like Tucker Carlson spread this great replacement theory that the white race is in danger and that we are losing our identity. And guess what happened after that? A man armed with an assault rifle who believed in this great replacement theory crap killed a bunch of minorities because he believed that we were losing our identity. That's the danger that we are facing. That's the real danger in this country. But let's go ahead and get down to brass tacks. What is this great American identity? What is our motto exactly? Are we the land of freedom and opportunity? Or are we just a land where we say it, but we don't actually mean it? Do we really practice what we preach? What is this great American identity? What is it we stand for nowadays? We always say, give me your tired, give me your sick, give me your poor, and enriched masses, or whatever the term. I'm sorry, I can't even think of it. But the thing is, we always talk about it, but yet when the time comes for us to put our money where our mouths is, for some reason we seem to have a problem with that. So why is it that these people that are making this dangerous trek across South America, into Mexico, into this country, Why is it that they're willing to risk everything to trek across dangerous terrain? Well, let's start by saying that there are corrupt governments in their countries. There are drug cartels, many drug cartels, might I add. There are traffickers down there, and if these people remain in those countries, their lives are actually in very great peril. People are going to be kidnapped, they're going to be sold into slavery via manual labor or sex trafficking. This is the reality that they have to face. Now, don't get me wrong. Labor trafficking and sex trafficking is a reality in this country. There are people in this country that are found, exploited, bought, and sold in this country alone. But there are people that are being exploited in their country as well, and then they're brought here to perform labor trafficking or sex trafficking in this country. This is their reality. This is our reality. However, we know this because the conservative base will tell you that Biden is trafficking these people across the country, which is a lie. I mean, it's completely absurd, but they're going to tell you this. They're going to say, Biden is flying these people all across the country. That's not true. At least I haven't seen about this, and I just think it's absurd. However, they're saying this because this is instilling fear upon those who will not do their research. They will listen to the QAnon conspiracy theorists and the other nut jobs who only want to spark controversy. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to be cautious. Of course, when people try to come to this country, we need to have a vetting process. There's nothing wrong with having a vetting process to ensure that those that are trying to come into this country are coming with the best intentions. There's nothing wrong with us doing that. I mean, we have customs at airports when people try to fly into this country. They still have to be vetted. Anybody that comes to this country have to go through customs, and then they have to declare and everything like that. We have these systems in place for a reason. The conservative base, however, they want to paint all the migrants with a broad brush. Why? Because it's exactly what their God Emperor Trump has dictated for them to do. Now, what did DeSantis and people like Abbott hope to do with this? Now, did they think that this was a great way to own the libs? I hate to break it to them, but the way they sent people to Martha's Vineyard Martha's Vineyard actually dispatched volunteers to help these people, to help these migrants. Volunteers like State Rep Dylan Fernandez and hundreds of other people, they pulled together to donate food, clothes, toys to the children that they have there to help these 50 migrants from Venezuela. Now, here's the part that is really screwed up, honestly. Some of these migrants said that they were lied to. They were told that they're going to be flown to Boston where they would receive shelter, support for 90 days. They would get help with work permits and English lessons. They were surprised, however, when they ended up on Martha's Vineyard, an island for crying out loud. They had no idea what was going on, let alone the fact that, Abbott and DeSantis didn't let anybody know. Why would they? I mean, we're talking about people that have no moral compass, for crying out loud. Nobody was notified of the arrival of these migrants. They were dropped off. They had no idea where the hell they were. They were in another country, had no idea what was going on. How screwed up is that? The migrants, since yesterday, they've been moved to a facility on Cape Cod, where they'll be given services like healthcare, mental health care crisis, and crisis counseling, immigration attorneys, what have you. All right. Now, this happened in a span of like 24 to 48 hours, okay? And you see people on social media is like, oh my God, look at Martha's Vineyard. They're very, they're xenophobic. They don't want people to be there. Well, no, listen. They banded together and put these people in a church. They gave these people clothing. They gave these people food, healthcare services and whatnot. And they spoke to them, say, hey, is it okay if we transport you to Cape Cod to receive additional services? And these people said yes, which is entirely different from what Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis have done. These people were spoken to and treated like human beings. Because they are, as a matter of fact. Now, is this a perfect system? Of course not. This is far from perfect. But you know what's going to happen next? I already predict what is going to happen next. The conservative base, when they find out the treatment that they're being given at Cape Cod and other facilities like this, they're going to attempt to tug at your heartstrings. They're going to be like, well, wait a second. Why are they doing this for the migrants? What about our homeless? What about our veterans? What about our homeless veterans? Well, here's my answer to that. Unclutch your fucking pearls. Stop pretending like you care about the homeless. Stop pretending like you care about the veterans. Stop pretending like you care about the homeless veterans, for crying out loud. You've had your opportunity, and you've probably done jack diddly squat for them. You probably look at a homeless person and look at them as a person that's probably just going to buy drugs with that money that you give them. You probably don't do anything for the homeless people. And I'm not claiming to say that I do anything like that, but I damn sure am not going to sit here and say, well, wait a second, what about our homeless? What about our veterans? You know what? I want there to be better programs for our veterans, and I want better programs for the homeless as well. Because honestly, the way we treat our homeless in this country is shameful. We still treat them like they are the lower scourges of society. But that's what we do in our society. We need to do more for them. But this is something that we need to do for these people as well. We always say, wait, no, we don't help them. Let's help our own first. Okay, so what exactly? Let's take, for example, if Ron DeSantis cares so much about the military, what has he done for the military and the veteran community? Well, he did approve $8.6 million to expand career and workforce training for the military and spouses. Now, how much did he spend on sending 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard? $12 million. So it seems like this is where his priorities are at. Not try and fix the problems in a state. Let me tell you a little bit about Florida. Where is it they rank in these systems? They rank 25th in healthcare, 20th in infrastructure, 33rd in opportunity, 26th in crime and corrections, and 18th in natural environment. But hey, optics is great, isn't it? Time to own the libs. Let's manipulate people into thinking we are helping them, when in fact all we are doing is owning the libs. But it gets worse. These immigrants, these migrants, have hearings on Monday in places like Seattle, Washington, San Antonio, Texas, and Washington, D.C. This was deliberate. Now, why did they do this? Because this is what's important to them. They think they're fighting a culture war. Well, they think they're winning too. This is backfiring on them in the biggest way possible. At least what happened in Martha's Vineyard. So what exactly is it that we can do about the situation on the border? Well, I'm going to be honest. Building the wall was the biggest waste of tax dollars, essentially. It didn't do anything. Trump insisted that there was no way they could climb this wall. People were seen climbing over the wall. Steve Bannon and Brian Kolfage raised money on the We Will Build the Wall campaign, and they enriched themselves off of that money. Building a wall was nothing more than optics. I knew it wasn't going to get built, I knew it wasn't going to get completed, and it still hasn't been completed to this day. So what can we do? We need to start fixing the backlog in our Department of Homeland Security. We also need to make sure we have more immigration lawyers available to help amnesties find places to live. Because whether people accept it or not, immigrants actually do stimulate our economy. If we kicked out every immigrant out of this country, regardless of their status, our workforce would take a massive blow. Now, as a country, I'm not expecting everyone to be able to house an immigrant family, nor do I think anybody should be forced to do so. We can have facilities in place to help the process more efficiently and whatnot, but, again, this is something that I don't know everything about. However, in the future, I do plan on reaching out to some immigration lawyers to talk about this situation, see what it's like, and maybe even reach out to those that work on the border. But what we cannot allow to do is this process of alienating people who just want to seek a better life for themselves. If we're going to be the land of the freedom of opportunity, if we're going to claim to be this Christian nation, then aren't these people going to remember? What are these people going to say when you quote this? When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Leviticus 19:33-34. Or let me ask you, wannabe Christian, something. Is it only cool to use Leviticus to hate on members of the LGBTQ plus community? Or once again, are you just going to pick and choose which parts of the Bible to draw inspiration from? Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. So MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell decided to go get breakfast at Hardee's in Mankato, Minnesota. Was surrounded by the FBI, who then seized his phone after showing him a warrant. Now, it wasn't the FBI or the Department of Justice that broke the news. They tend not to do that. But it was Mike Lindell himself. Now, what exactly were they looking for? Apparently, they were looking for evidence in regard to a possible connection he may have to Tina Peters, a Mesa County, Colorado clerk who's been accused by state authorities of allowing unauthorized personnel to break into the system that counted the votes for the 2020 election to prove that Donald Trump won and that, in fact, the election was stolen. Now, Lindell, to his credit, said the FBI were very professional, they were nice, and they didn't have an attitude with him. But MAGA Republicans, however, are still continuing to lose their damn minds. Now, I continue to see people on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, saying things like, the FBI has raided Trump and has seized Mike Lindell's phone, yet we still don't know who was on Epstein's client list. Okay, for the record, who was present when Epstein was arrested? Who was present when Epstein was found guilty? Who was president when Epstein killed himself? And I say in quotations because I still don't believe he killed himself. He supposedly killed himself in August of 2019, so take all the time you need with that. I'm just going to let you just use your imagination. Who could it be? Who was president at the time? People just want to make excuses to play whataboutism games regarding as to why Lindell was served a warrant with the FBI. Now, once again, people are griping, saying the FBI is corrupt, the alphabet agents needs to be funded, but the very same people who think the police defunding is a bad idea. Now, for starters, I never ever wanted there to be defunding of the police. I just wanted there to be damn accountability. If a cop screws up, hold them accountable. Don't cover it up. If an FBI agent screws up, don't cover it up. Expose them, prosecute them, the same way you do anybody else. Mike Lindell has continued to spread lie after lie about the election being stolen. He has continued to say, I have evidence proving the election was stolen, and has never produced a single iota of evidence. Now, do we have all the facts as to why his phone was taken? I don't. All I know is that the MAGA Republicans have come to his defense, calling him a patriot. Mike Lindell is not a patriot. He's a Trump loyalist, for crying out loud. He's continued to lie about the 2020 election in order to stay in the good graces of Trump. He has continued to promote this idea, and people are still buying into it. There are people out there that swear up and down that the election was stolen, but they have no proof to back it up with. And no, I still have not watched 2,000 Mules, and you're not going to make me watch it. I'm not going to waste my money or anybody else's money to watch this damn fraudumentary. But the fact of the matter is he's continued to peddle these lies. Why? Because he's doing it because he wants to stay in the good graces of Donald Trump. We are having these January 6th committee hearings because people on January 6th of 2021 stormed the Capitol at the behest of their God Emperor. For those that haven't taken a chance to look at it, I created a video that talked about the dangers of spreading these lies and misinformation because Trump sent these people to the Capitol and they attacked our Capitol police officers, they attacked the members, and they were looking for our elected officials to cause harm to them. They were looking to attack our vice president because Trump says he chose to not do the right thing. This is dangerous. Mike Lindell is dangerous. And there are people that still attend these rallies to worship people like Mike Lindell who continue to worship Donald Trump. And this is why I continue to stand by this idea that it is a cult. Mike Lindell and everybody else associated with Trump is in a world of shit right now. And they are being treated with kid gloves. There are people in this country that have been treated for far worse, for far less. But people are crying foul. They're wondering, why hasn't Epstein's client list been released? That's a damn good question, and I would love to know the answer to that as well. But right now, we are talking about the fact that there are people in this country that swear up and down the election was stolen and still peddling these lies to this day. People like Mike Lindell are dangerous. People just don't realize how dangerous they truly are. We've got to do our best to continue to expose these people for the frauds that they truly are. So my last story for the evening is talking about Disney's redo of The Little Mermaid. The biggest change that is being talked about right now is Ariel is played by Halle Bailey, a black R&B singer. She's now an actress. Social media is lit up like a damn forest fire. The trailer alone racked up 1.5 million dislikes on YouTube. 1.5 million dislikes. People have been losing their damn minds over the idea of a mermaid, a fictional creature, might I add, having dark skin. Stop the presses, Karens are calling the cops, and Walt Disney is rolling in his damn grave. Nah, not really. Why is this such a big deal? Is Disney really going woke? Honestly, I say no. I don't consider this a big deal. To me, I don't consider it a big deal. Haters right now are saying that this is horrible. They're trying to be woke. Oh my God, this is terrible. Why would they change the skin color of a fictional character? Ariel is supposed to be white. Why are they doing this? I made a comment on Twitter by sharing a picture of white actors who played historical figures who weren't even white, or even fictional characters who aren't even white. John Wayne, for crying out loud, played Genghis Khan in The Conqueror. A terrible movie, might I add. And the fact that they had picked John Wayne to play Genghis Khan was just atrocious. But, you know, he was a big celebrity, big star. Hey, this might work. It was terrible. The movie sucked. Willem Dafoe played Jesus Christ. Jake Gyllenhaal played the Prince of Persia. He doesn't look freaking Persian. But people are losing their minds in the negative sense of a mermaid being black. These people are babies, in my opinion. They are morons. I, for one, again, have no problem with this. Optics about this is a net positive, not a net negative. I've watched videos on TikTok showing young black girls and boys seeing Ariel with their same skin color, and they were overcome with emotion. Even the parents were overcome with emotion. Even adults who grew up with the red-headed, pale-skinned Ariel were overcome with emotion. And for those not why sure this is a big deal, I'm going to share with you some historical context about how the entertainment industry and how does it portray people of different skin colors. Now, for those that remember, the Song of the South, when I was growing up, was an upbeat, happy-go-lucky Disney special to watch. When you watch it today, you realize how it portrays characters like Uncle Remus, played by James Baskett, living on a plantation during the Civil War, and how everything is happy-go-lucky and everything is wonderful on the plantation. There's sunshine and rainbows and the birds are chirping and it's beautiful. Slaves are happy and merry. But nothing could be further from the truth. There is a reason why it's considered offensive today. It portrays a stereotype that paints a false image of life in the South during the slavery days as happy-go-lucky, which it was not. The Mammy caricature. Everybody's familiar with the Mammy caricature. If you're not, Google it. It's a slavery-era mammy that didn't want to be free, but wanted to serve the white people and openly defended her servitude to them. Universal Pictures released a cartoon in 1941 where black people lived in a town called Lazy Town, and the cartoon Scrub Me Mama with a Boogie Beat. Completely offensive stuff. This is how black people were portrayed back in the day. Now, I'm not saying no one's being portrayed like this day, but the fact that they are still in existence. Now, granted, they're not aired on nationwide television, but it's the fact that they were aired to begin with says enough. The first time a black princess was introduced was in 2009 in the movie The Princess and the Frog. In the entire history of Disney, in 2009 was the first time that a black princess was introduced. Now, it may seem like this is enough, but let me explain why it's even more important. Why this is important to some black children. Now, I'm not taking it from the perspective of a black person. I'm simply explaining to you the historical context of why this could be important. Now, you could take this for what you want to, and you can disagree with me if you want to, but this is the way I'm seeing it. In the 1940s, Kenneth and Mamie Clark, a married team of psychology researchers, used dolls to investigate how black children viewed their racial identity. In that experiment, the black children were asked to choose between a white doll or a black doll. The black children primarily chose the white doll because they didn't want to choose the black doll because they saw the doll in a negative light, because of the negative connotations in those days of how black people were viewed. Now, is that true to this day? Tony Sturdivant wrote an article how she tried the exact same experiment with a group of children with 4 different kinds of dolls. She chose a white, a black, a Latina, and black with lighter skin and a black with medium skin. What she observed was the girls she used during this experiment rarely played with the black, the darker skinned doll. On the times they played with them, the dolls were often mistreated. We're talking about the black doll. It was often mistreated. Now, could this mean that it's a nationwide experiment? No, I'm not trying to say that. However, if one experiment proves this, it could be possible that you could do this experiment with other children, and the same could be true for all of them. I don't know. I haven't done enough research on this topic. However, if this happened to one group of girls, Some of them were black as well. You can almost guarantee this could happen across the country. It's because we as a society still have negative stereotypes towards people of different skin colors. I mean, look at how people reacted to Ariel being black. They are still losing their damn minds over this. People are freaking out about this. First things first, let's just take into account the fact that mermaids don't exist. It's not real. But I'm going to explain to you why optics like this are important. It's because minorities still tend to get looked at in a negative light. Society still has a racial problem. And this casting of Ariel is proving that even further. I mean, if people are freaking out and getting upset about this, how do you think they view black people to this day, that I wonder? People who are looking at this from a negative sense are trying to cover the tracks by saying, oh, well, it doesn't make any sense because mermaids living in the dark part of the ocean, they wouldn't be having dark skin like that, which I think is a complete cop-out, and it's absurd to even focus on that. When you hear a child of all different ethnicities see Halle Bailey as Ariel, they say, wow, she's beautiful. And it truly does, even for a moment, break that societal norm that people know exists, but some people are just too damned ashamed or ignorant to admit. Now, I want everybody to remind everybody that's listening right now of this fact. This is not the first time that a black actress has replaced a white person. Far from it. In the 2021 version of Dune, Sharon Duncan Brewster was cast as Leah Kynes, who in the book and in the 1984 David Lynch movie and the 2000 miniseries were played by white people. Leah Kynes is a white person, half white, half Fremen kind of deal, okay? But guess what? She frickin' rocked that role. She nailed it. She did a great job. As limited as her screen time was, she was fantastic. Total boss mode in that movie. And we're talking about, like, complete gender swap for crying out loud. And that people were having a meltdown from that, too. But I tell you what, though, she did a great job in that. This movie could really add to the optics that fills children's minds and imagination and inspiration and truly make this a norm for other Disney movies. I mean, look what has happened in our country's recent history. The Supreme Court has Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman on the Supreme Court. Now, let's not just focus on her gender and skin color. She's also, without a doubt, the most qualified justice in the Supreme Court in recent history. Optics like that, it gives young girls hope and a positive outlook. If she can do it, so can I. If she can do it, so can I. Now, whether we want to accept this or not, the entertainment industry plays a very significant role in how we view ourselves sometimes. For example, for decades now, the concept of beauty for a woman was to be slender, with big boobs, have nice round hips, and a nice hourglass figure. This was believed to be the standard of pure beauty. This has drastically harmed some women into suffering eating disorders over this concept of societal norms to be accepted. Some people have these negative images of themselves. And sometimes something as simple as a child's movie can change all that. Now, I'm not going to have this wild belief that this is going to solve all the racial bias or societal outlooks in the entire world. We still have such a long way to go, for crying out loud. I mean, my goodness, like I said, people are still freaking out about this. They're still losing their damn minds about this. But I still consider this a step in the right direction, for crying out loud. Now, if this movie tanks, it could be because maybe it just doesn't have the same magic as before. Or it could even surpass the original cartoon version every category. We don't know. The movie's not going to be released until March. All I know is that this has sent shockwaves across the country. Maybe even the whole planet. Children see this, and it's changed their perception on everything. Because I tell you what, you have to look at it like this. All that matters is the optics it is telling children. Ariel is black, and she is beautiful. That's so important. That's so vital. This isn't to say that other characters they might have seen weren't beautiful before, but it's just you're taking a character that is supposedly Nordic and whatnot, and you're just changing her skin color, but she's beautiful. That is just going to it's such an important thing. It's an important distinction. people have got to remember that this is a step in the right direction. And if you're triggered by this, if you're upset by the concept of changing a mermaid's skin color, then you really have to take a deep dive and look into yourself. What is it that bothers you so much about this? What, now you're going to start looking, well, wait a second. Does this mean then that we can start, making Martin Luther King a white person? First things first, okay? If somebody is willing to be ballsy enough to do that, I double dog dare them to try that and see how that works. But the entertainment industry has the right, according to the First Amendment, to do so. They're free to do that. They probably won't do that. However, I want everybody to understand something, though, in regards to this. This is something that is important to many. It may not be important to you, but it is important to them. It's important to those that see this in a positive light. And I see this in a positive light. This is something that is good. This is something that is just going to spark and give inspiration to young children and young adults of all ages. This is possible. It's not that big of a deal. Stop making it a big deal. Stop making it such a negative thing, because it's not a negative thing. We have to remember why something like this is important. People want to be seen and treated like equals, and something as simple as changing the skin color of a mermaid can be a step in the right direction. We all strive to be accepted in society. We want to be treated as equals, but we still have such a long way to go in this regard. Who knows how long it's going to take us to get to that point? We don't know. But I just want everybody to understand that this is why it's such a good thing. Now, you might consider this woke. It's not woke. It's simply just making a difference. Some people are probably going to watch this movie and they're going to hate it all automatically. But some people are going to watch this and they're going to love it. I mean, who knows? It's not going to get released until March. And if this is really going to throw this for a loop even more, her dad is going to be played by Javier Bardem, apparently. I don't see people freaking out about that. It's just because people are focused on the central character, which is Ariel. But I want you all to remember this, okay? And I'm going to say this once more time. Ariel is black, and she is beautiful. I want us all to remember that. Anyway, I do want to take the time to thank everybody that took the time to listen to this episode. I want to take the time to thank everybody that has shown me love and support in listening. And you know what? I do enjoy listening, catching up, and I do enjoy listening to other people's content, but I do enjoy doing this myself. I know it's not the most popular podcast out there, but I do this because I enjoy it. I want to get people to understand what's going on in the world, the current events that are going on in this country or abroad, and I also want people to know, hey, I like beer too. But I do this because I enjoy doing things like this. I enjoy getting my points of view out there. A lot of the time, I am going to share my opinion with people, but that's because it's important to me to share my point of view on these topics. Hopefully, in the near future, I plan on broadening the horizons of current events on tap to make it more mainstream, because I do want more people to listen to this podcast. So do me a favor. Do me a solid. Share, share this podcast on every social media platform you share. Let people hear my voice. And some people might say, oh, this guy's annoying, and turn it off. That's fine. I'm not going to force people to listen to me. But I want people to tell me what they think of this podcast. Feel free to drop me a line. Let me know what you see on Facebook, on Discord, on TikTok. Hell, go give me a like on TikTok while you're at it. I'm sorry. On TikTok while you're at it. Because the more love I get, the merrier. Anyway, I want to say once again, thank you so much for joining me today. And I just want everybody to know, I hope you have a fantastic weekend and a good, safe weekend. Thank you so much. See you next week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This has been a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project.